right. Well, welcome back to another video. I just want to say all glory goes to God. He's number one. He goes first. All right, so today's video is going to be talking about why I think personally, just looking it up or whatever, you should learn a martial art and you should start today. So, obviously, there's a lot of benefits that come to mind. I'm saying you learn to defend yourself, learn to fight, whatever. Yeah, I'm going to include those, but that's not the basic reason why. Because most of the time, hopefully, you will never have to use a martial art you're learning, but at the end of the day, it's always good to be prepared. You know what I'm saying? So me personally, I do Muay Thai. I've always loved Muay Thai. I've always wanted to practice Muay Thai. But because of certain life events and, some other, not in any bad way or whatever, but I just, never did it. And one day, as of this video, probably 6 months ago, maybe more like 6-7 months ago, I'm like, you know what? We're gonna do Muay Thai because it's about damn time. And I do it now. I do it 5 days a week and I love it. And I honestly wish that I would have done that and started doing Muay Thai much, much sooner. But you live and you learn. So anyways, there we go. All right, so reason number one, obviously there's a physical fitness side of it, right? Most of the time, if you have a gym that's worth their salt, it's gonna be a workout, at least some of it. Not all of it's supposed to be technique, there is supposed to be workouts in it. Get your cardio in, get your weight training in if you're, in fight camp or whatever, how they got it structured up. But especially if you're not doing anything right now, it'll definitely help with your physical fitness. And also, especially if you're on a weight loss journey or whatever, that's all calories burned there. I guarantee you're not burning it now. Number two, the mental side. There is something to say that when you start a martial art, it builds confidence and you start to feel better about yourself a little bit. At least me personally, I'm like, yeah, you know what? If, stuff hit the fan, I would be able to defend myself or whatever, or I would be able to defend a loved one or something, or at least, defend myself in a way where I can at least get away in a street scenario. Or if you want to compete, that's a wholly different story. But also just the mental toughness that it also builds simultaneously. Because, especially if you're not used to doing a lot of physical activity or you're not used to doing, the martial arts, there's something to be said about the mental fortitude that it takes in order to keep, going even when your body's in pain or whatever. Especially with Muay Thai, boxing, kickboxing, there's this famous Thai saying I saw on this YouTube channel, the Thai is saying that, the Thai fighter, he's saying that Muay Thai is pain. And that is very true because, you're checking kicks, and if whoever you guys who practice Muay Thai or kickboxing, you're shins collide together or getting punched in the face, whatever, it's not fun. And obviously, heart sprung within reason or whatever. But it really helps, I think, build your kind of mental a little bit because, again, especially if you're not used to doing stuff or if you've always been on the fence with doing something like I was for a long time, it really helps out. And I feel like, there's a lot of people, especially that I talk to that, just start doing Muay Thai who, I'm a very friendly guy. I always like to introduce myself, to the new people who come into the Muay Thai gym. And most of the time, most people, they live very busy lives, they're working 9 to 5, whatever. And, they've always thought the idea was cool and they're just now kind of building up the courage to get into it. And they've never done that much physical activity before. For me, I never played high school sports or I never did a lot of sports growing up, you know what I'm saying? I played soccer and stuff like that. But that was really it. So, as far as the mental stuff goes, I really help it instills that mental toughness and that mental confidence, I feel like. So, another benefit that most people don't really consider, especially because it can be extremely intimidating going into, a martial arts gym or whoa, there are all these dudes that you know, or whatever, all these people that know how to fight, and you know, they could probably like beat me up and whatever. Like, I know when me, that was one of my concerns, especially getting into Muay Thai and just the nature of the sport. You know, I know the Thai people are very friendly, but you know, it's just like the nature of Muay Thai. It's a very brutal combat sport, you know, and it's a very brutal martial art to learn. So especially going into, you know, even with this, you know, so you've kind of heard some stuff about like, even with boxing communities, kickboxing, whatever, you know, there's that intimidation factor. But I guarantee you, most of the time, especially if a gym is worth their salt, it'll be a great time. You'll build a new community, you know what I'm saying? You'll have all that more friends, all that new, you know, a new social circle, you know, and especially most of the people there, especially in my gym, you know, everyone's pretty like-minded. You know, they all want to improve themselves. They want to get better. You know, they all want to improve, you know, physically, mentally, you know, learn how to defend themselves. So it's good to be in an environment where many people want you to succeed and are on a similar mental vibration and kind of wavelength. So I think that's a huge plus, you know, and most of the guys, you know, they sometimes, like I said, you know, some people are kind of weird, whatever. There may be some gyms that are kind of standoffish at first, but I promise you, you know, once everything settles, you kind of becoming, you know, get there more regularly, whatever, become more of a regular student and stuff like that. The bonds that you create are well worth it. Let's see. Another thing is it builds discipline. And especially for people who, you know, don't come from a background where you have a lot of discipline, like, you know, like I was a kid that played a lot of video games, you know, growing up. That's one of the reasons why I joined the military. And I think many in areas of my life in the military, they complement very easy. Like for me, Muay Thai right now, I'm not gonna say it's easy, but I am more mentally prepared, I'd say, and more physically prepared, you know, just physically, you know, for Muay Thai. Like I know that I'm one of the more fit people in the class. I struggle with less, but that doesn't mean, you know, that I'm still not building discipline, you know, because there's days, especially this last weekend, I did not want to train. I did not want to do it. And that was like for 4 or 5 days, like that whole week. The only day that I didn't go was Friday. But it really builds discipline, and it makes you, you know, because it forces you to get consistent. It forces you to, you know, really kind of dial in, you know what I'm saying? And there's not a lot of other professions and stuff. I mean, obviously, you know, there are exceptions, but there's not a lot of stuff, you know, extracurricularly in the real world that really builds that discipline than martial arts does, in my personal opinion. I also know, you know, kind of going back on the mental thing, for some people, like there's some, you know, guys that I go to the, you know, I do Muay Thai with, that Muay Thai gets them out of bed every morning. You know what I'm saying? Like that's, you know, that's what they do. You know, they're kind of struggling with some mental stuff, you know, and that in and of itself really helps them out. And I'm gonna share a personal story at the very end of the video, because I was in a very similar situation, especially when I got out of the military. And I'm kind of, you know, tying all these things together. I'm gonna listen more things together. I'm gonna tie all of what I've said together into my own personal story, because I've been there and done that. So, I also would say it gives you a new identity, you know, because, hey, you know, you're part of I guess a clique now. You know, you do karate, you do jiu-jitsu, you do Muay Thai, you box, whatever. You know what I'm saying? There's a new identifier that you can identify with pride, even if you're not good, even if you're a beginner. You know what I'm saying? Like, it builds that kind of sense of purpose and that new sense of identity, which especially for a lot of people, myself included, I was in a very mentally tough spot. I was very depressed when I got out of the military, and you know, Muay Thai has really helped me kind of build my confidence back up, because when I left the military, transitioning from the military to civilian world, I was very depressed. I was very angry at the world. You know, I didn't really have that many friends. I didn't associate myself with really anybody or anything. And I feel like I lost my sense of purpose and I lost my identity, you know. And for me, you know, training Muay Thai has definitely helped my sense of purpose. It actually almost renewed my sense of purpose. Definitely renewed my identity, you know, because like I said, I have the identifier. I'm like, oh yeah, you know, I practice Muay Thai. And even that, you know, some people don't know what it is, but like, you know, I tell people, you're like, holy shit, like that's badass, you know? So it's like, just that even of itself, you know, not doing it for any sort of like gratification or whatever, just my own personal stuff, you know, like just having the purpose and the identity again that I can kind of associate myself with, like really helped me out, and it still does to this day. And I don't plan on stopping either. Let's see. So, I mean, another obvious pro is you learn to defend yourself, you know, especially in a street fight scenario. Obviously, God forbid, no one ever gets in a street fight, or maybe you already have or whatever, you know, who knows. But obviously, you know, doing a sport like boxing or kickboxing, Muay Thai, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, whatever, you learn how to defend yourself. You know, I never ever want to get into a street fight, like a legit street fight. Like, you know, I fought some kids in high school or whatever, but I wouldn't consider that a street fight, you know? But, you know, hopefully the martial art you learn can help you or your loved one in a scenario where you may need to rely on your training. And obviously that's a huge benefit. So, you know, it's pretty self-explanatory. Another thing that has really helped me, you know, learning a martial art, especially in particular Muay Thai, you know, I'm rocking my gym shirt right here, is it gives you something to drive for and something to improve on. You know what I'm saying? Especially for a lot of people who are lacking that, like I was, especially, you know, again, transitioning out of the military, where I was lacking a lot of myself. You know, I was in a very mentally dark place. So that, you know, Muay Thai is an outlet for me to be like, okay, hell yeah. You know, if I don't get this down, all right, you know what? I should need to practice more. I should need to practice more. I should need to get more reps in. You need to get more rounds in. You know, you get more pad work in. Whatever. You know what I'm saying? Or I need to get more, you know, miles in on the road. You know what I'm saying? So it really helps with that. And real quick, you know, basically when I was going to say earlier, I'm lumping all these experiences because I've experienced all of these personally. When I got out of the military, I had an identity crisis. I would say I had a sense of purpose, or I was lacking a sense of purpose. I was very angry, you know, very upset at the world. I didn't get along with people. I disassociated myself with literally everybody. I was filled with anger. I was very depressed. And, you know, doing Muay Thai, and this doesn't have to be Muay Thai for you, it could be any sort of martial art or whatever it is, but just martial arts in particular, that helps out so much. You know, it gets you physically active again. You know, it gives you that sense of purpose, that new identity like I was talking about. You know what I'm saying? A new group of friends, a new social circle. You know, gets you more physically active, more physically fit. You know, especially in a, you know, sport like boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, jiu-jitsu, whatever. You're moving around a lot. You're using your muscles. You're getting strong, you know? So, anyway, just based off of my personal experience, obviously most people will be like, yeah, duh, you should learn a martial art, whatever. But people oftentimes are on the fence for a long time, like I was. So hopefully this video pushes you to just jump off the fence and go for it. All right, have a good one. Bye.